Hi everybody, I'm Jim Shore. Welcome to my South Carolina lake house. We're in the kitchen today because we're not going to do art, we're going to do cooking. Now, let me tell you a little story. When I was in my youth a few years ago, I was kind of bumming around trying to find myself and doing my starving artist routine. And I happened to spend a little bit of quality time with a Cajun family down in the backwater of Gulfport, Mississippi. And I had the time of my life. Let me tell you, I love the Cajun folks. They have a heart of gold. Of course, you don't want to mess with them. But they know how to live, they know how to love, and most of all, they know how to cook. One of my favorite recipes that they gave me, and I've kept all these years, was a version of Cajun Jambalaya. And so that's what we're going to be cooking today. I've got all the ingredients here, and I want to go down the I'll go down the parts list first. So pay attention. I'll do this slowly so that you can keep up. The meat that you want to get is you need about a pound of shrimp. I use medium-sized shrimp because I don't like the real big ones. I don't want to cut them up. And so about a pound of medium shrimp. You want to make sure that you properly devein and peel the shrimp and so forth so they're nice and clean. You want about a pound of chicken. Now, if you like white meat, then of course go with breast. I like dark meat, so I made a combination. I use a breast or a breast and a half of white meat, and then I cut up a thigh in it, and that gives me a combination of some white and dark. So, but it's up to you. If you like the white, then stick with the thighs. You also need about a half a pound or so of sausage. Now that would be underway sausage. I think that's the right pronunciation. Pardon my French. Or you can use kielbasa or the other type of sausages that are very similar to that, the ones that have a lot of flavor and like a kielbasa. But I use andouille because that's what's typical of real authentic jambalaya. And you want about a cup of cooked ham, and you can get it at the store in small amounts, and whatever you have left over, make sandwiches out of. So you want 1 can, about 14 ounces or so, whatever comes in a can, of diced tomatoes, undrained, and you want a small can of the tomato paste. That has some real intense flavor in it, and without doing a lot of extra fluid and so forth, it'll impart a really nice full tomatoey taste. You want about a cup or so, this is it here, of brown rice. It can be a combination of brown and wild. You could use white, I suppose, but I think to be more traditional, I think the brown rice works better. Let's see, you want about 3 cups of chicken broth, 2 to 3. It depends on whether you want it a little stiffer or if you want it where it's a little bit looser. That's up to you. You can adjust that as you go along. And if you put too much in it and you feel like it's too watery, just let it cook a little bit longer, and it'll cook that some of that liquid off of there. Now we get into what you want as far as the vegetables that you're going to put in there. You are going to put 1 onion. Now, I don't use Vidalia onions because that's too much like eating an apple. I want something that'll make me become emotional when I'm cutting it up. I want some tears, So I use either a yellow skin onion or a red skin or a Spanish onion, something like that. It's got a little bit of zip to it. You want a couple of stalks of celery, and you want 2 or 3 fairly substantial cloves of garlic. Now, the onion, the celery, and 1 bell pepper. I use, the most common, of course, are green. We're going to have some green in here, so So I chose a yellow bell pepper, and you can get them in those stoplight colors, you know, red, green, and yellow. So I use yellow, but they're all the same, red, you know, green. It's up to you. Whatever you have on hand or whatever you most conveniently pick up. Now that you'll chop it up fairly fine, like I've got here, about like that. It's just a matter of spending a few minutes doing a little bit of chopping. Keep your fingers out of the way. You know, do it right and do it safe, so you don't add any unwanted DNA in the mix. And okay, now keep on hand keep around a little bit of brown sugar. In fact, when I put these things together, I usually sprinkle a little bit of brown sugar on it as I go, but I'll show you that in a minute. As far as the herbs, we've got a combination of basil, about a tablespoonful or so, parsley, once again about a tablespoon, about a half a tablespoon of thyme or sage. I've combined the two, and there's a similar sort of pungency to both of them, really, and you'll be able to smell that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then about a half a teaspoon, or half a tablespoon rather, that's a teaspoon and a half of well, let's see, well, I got it, parsley, let me go back over this, basil, parsley, thyme or sage. Okay, good. Now, you'll want also a bay leaf. Now, a lot of people at the end of their cooking, they fish the bay leaf out. I leave it in there. That way, whoever finds the bay leaf gets to kiss the cook, or a handshake, depending on who finds it. You want to have some crushed black peppercorns, and I use a little bit of salt. Now you can salt to taste, but I urge you to wait until the last end to salt it, because you don't want to cook the salt into the thing. Sometimes that toughens some of these elements, and you don't want that. So salt it to taste towards the end of your of the cooking here, and it'll be better. Let's see, and a little bit of cayenne if you want it to be a little bit spicy. I personally do. Generally, I fix it fairly mild here for the family. That way they can add their peppers or their, you know, the crushed pepper, or a little bit of cayenne or something like that when it's served up, and that works fine. Also, with the pepper, now if you put cayenne or something like a pepper like that in the front end of your cooking, it's going to be a lot more intense than if you put it in towards the end. Now, towards the end, you'll still have some heat and you'll have some flavor, but it won't overpower the flavor of the other ingredients. So, once again, that's a procedural matter that'll be up to you, depending on how you like it. Okay. Now, what I've done, well, let me start out here with the actual procedure, and there's kind of a you know, step by step here in order to maximize the tastes and all that. Once again, also, what I like to do before I start cooking, if I have a combination of vegetables, a combination of tomato stuff, a combination of the herbs, the meats and whatnot, I like to mix them all together before I add them. That way they all get added together, and it gives them a chance to you know, kind of get acquainted, and they share the flavors of each other a little bit better. And with the vegetables, that's where I add the brown sugar. I put about, you know, a pinch, probably about a tablespoon or less of brown sugar, and I just sprinkle it over there, and I work that into it so it's kind of coats this stuff. Now we can get started cooking here. The first thing you want to do is you want to get a fairly substantial stew pot, because you don't want it to be too small. I've got this cast iron pot that I like to cook this kind of stuff in, stews and soups and that kind of thing. And you want to start off with browning the chicken and the shrimp together. That's the first thing. And I brown it, I'm using bacon grease. Why is bacon grease good? It comes from bacon, okay? That should be obvious. Now, but you can use Crisco, you can use or you can use regular cooking oil. Don't use very much, maybe a couple of tablespoons will be enough. and any kind will do, peanut, canola, whatever. And you brown it up. Now I've already done that to save a little time here. And so I've taken it off, I've removed it and drained it in the pot after I did a little browning on it. And into your the drippings and the grease. And now there's a little fluid that'll come out of the shrimp and the meat and so forth. So it makes a little bit of a broth almost in the bottom of your stew pan. That's a good thing. That's what we'll coat the we'll start coating the vegetables with. Let me get the heat going again. Old school. Okay. I'm gonna get that start to warm up a little bit. Now, I like to put just a little dollop of butter in there too. It adds a little flavor, and it makes it coating this stuff a little bit nicer. You'll see. Bacon and butter, you know. Okay, you stir in now the onion, the celery, the bell pepper, the garlic into your mix, and you stir it around a little bit to sort of get things coated and get them to start browning. And you'll see that the onions will start turning a little bit translucent, and that'll be an indication that it's ready to continue on. Okay. Now, once that's coated and heating up, at that point we'll put the rice in, and we'll do the same thing with the rice. We'll stir it around so that it gets coated and it starts getting warm. Okay. So let me check and see where we're at. To be perfect, you ought to do this for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, stirring it around. That'll actually the onions are already starting to turn in here, so we're doing the right thing. Let me just go ahead and dump the rice in. Like I said, it's about 1.5 cups of rice, I think. It's about right. A little more than a cup. Give or take, depending on what your preference is. See, that looks real good. It's starting to look good already. And you can see, I'll show you what it's looking like. It's looking like this. So it's got some nice color. You can see that. It's got some nice color. Everything's nicely coated. And we're going to start working on that until it gets browns just a little bit. There we go. That gets everything sort of married together. Yeah, this is going to be good. Okay. Now, after that cooks for just a little bit, then you want to add your broth and your tomato paste together. I'm doing this pretty quick. You can take your time on this, and I got it on high heat. Probably the smart thing to do is put it on medium heat so you can control it a little better, and that way you don't have to continuously keep it stirred. But for the sake of time. Okay, put in the broth. There we go. And put in the tomato. And once again, I even did the same thing with the tomato as far as mixing it together. If I'm using paste with other tomato, things like stewed tomatoes, or in this case, diced tomatoes, I like to stir it all together. It's a little bit easier to get it to combine when you put it in a pot if you do it that way. Well, I might add that at the very beginning, I did what you must always do when you start cooking. That is, roll up your sleeves, take off your jewelry if you can, and thoroughly wash your hands. Cleanliness is so important when you're cooking, particularly when you're using stuff like chicken and that sort of thing. So you want to keep everything real clean. Now this seems kind of soupy, but we got the rice in there, and they'll start absorbing some of the chicken broth, and it'll start thickening up a little bit. Jambalaya typically is not extremely thick. It's not like a stew. That's why you don't, when we have the drippings and the juice in the beginning, we don't make a roux out of it, which is taking your grease and your drippings and adding flour, and sometimes people add pepper to it too, and then you mix it up till it just starts to thicken a little bit, and that's a roux. And that allows you to get sort of like almost kind of light gravy in the stuff. But typically, jambalaya does not have that. You know, I called it a Cajun dish. There's kind of an argument about that among the food experts. Some people think it's a Creole dish. Some people think it's a Cajun dish. Some people think it's simply a provincial dish, started not in New Orleans or in Louisiana, but in around the Mobile, Alabama area. Depends on, and they go by where it has appeared in early publications or early mentions in writing. Actually, even the word jambalaya, they're not really sure where it came from. It doesn't really mean anything, to tell you the truth. Some people think it's a combination of jambo, which means ham, and the African word aya, which refers to rice. It's an African dialect, aya. We would write that A-Y-A, so it's aya. Put those jambalaya, so they think that might be the thing. It was, I think, if memory serves, first mentioned in the word actually was first mentioned in some early 1800s French provincial writing, where they used the word jambalaya. They spelled it a little differently, but they pronounced it very similarly, and it didn't even allude to food. It was a word, sort of a colloquialism for hodgepodge, or just a mess of stuff. Maybe that's where they got it, because you throw so many things in here. But whether it's Cajun or whether it's Creole or provincial or what you call it, doesn't matter, because it's good stuff no matter what you call it. Like they say, a rose by any other name is just as sweet. Well, that applies to jambalaya too. Okay, you get that going. Now it's time to go ahead and put in your in the herb combination. This is really going to be good, I'm telling you. It smells good already. So I was adding a little bit of character in there, a little color combination. Beautiful. I like color. Okay, that's going. We'll bring this to a boil. So we've got it on high, and we're going to bring that up to pretty much of a, not quite rolling boil, but you'll see a lot of activity among the broth. And then we'll cut it back and let those simmer together for about 6 or 8 minutes before we start adding the meat. And the reason for that is because you don't want any of the meats to get overcooked, so it's important that you sort of understand when it's best to put it in. The meat's already been browned, so the cooking is already, process with the meat has already started. So, but you don't want to have it in there where it's undercooked, or where it's cooked to the point of being tough or falling apart. Okay, we got that boiling. Starting to roll. You can see those bubbles just churning away. I'll turn that down on medium and let it turn it down to a slow simmer. You don't have to cover it at this point. And we'll let it simmer for about 8 minutes. So we'll take a little break for a few minutes, and when we come back, we'll be ready to continue with the putting the meat in and polishing this thing off. Okay, welcome back, folks. We've got the main ingredients over here having simmered for, I guess we simmered for about 8 minutes or so. And it's already starting to thicken up. You'll see that by then. Now it's time to add the meat. you add the chicken and the shrimp first, and you let it cook in there for about a few minutes before you add the ham and the sausage, andouille sausage. That's because both the ham and the sausage is already cooked, and you don't want to overdo it, because what you want that flavor to release, but you don't want it to be mushy, you don't want it to be too soft, and you don't want the ham to start falling apart. So, man, this looks just like it looked back on the backwater. I'll have to tell you more about that sometime. It's interesting times. Okay, that's looking real good. Let me tip it up and you can see how it's starting to look. See, it's got that nice color, crisp color. Everything looks nice and fresh. Oh yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention too. All the herbs that I put in there, those were all fresh herbs, because, well, I just like using fresh herbs. Even the bay leaf was fresh, but I think you could probably use the dried herbs. I've used them before, and I think there's very little difference. One maybe seems a little more romantic than the other, but as far as the taste, the dried herbs, they give you a pretty good taste too, and a nice aroma. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you can find fresh, or if you grow it yourself, great. If you don't, go ahead and pick it up in the store. Use what you got dry. So, okay, we'll let that simmer for just a little bit, and then we will wrap this thing up by putting in the sausage and the ham, and to top it off, you let it simmer for about 10 or 15 minutes. The rice that you put in there is not quick rice, so it takes generally about 20 minutes in a hot condition like that, a boiling condition or simmering condition, for rice to really get done. And you want the rice to get done. You don't want the rice to be hard. You want it to be fairly soft. And the brown rice takes a little bit longer than than your white rice does. Stir that all around. Okay, at this point you can consider salting it, and you can let it simmer for just a little bit, and you can add your cayenne and your salt. Now I like to cook with kosher salt or with sea salt. I'm not sure it really matters. I mean, salt, I guess, is salt, but I've always preferred the kosher or the sea salt. It's a little bit coarser, and I think it gives a more interesting flavor. Actually, it's not as salty as the what you would get like Morton's salt, which I'm using Morton's kosher salt. So, but I'll give this just a little bit of a taste and see where we're at as far as our salt is concerned. I wish you were here because that is really good. does need a little salt. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit in here. About do it. A little bit more. Okay, I'm not going to put cayenne pepper in right now, but this is when you would do it. And what we're going to do, we're going to let this simmer for about another 10 minutes, or a little bit longer maybe, 10 or 15 minutes. And you will see that you will have a dish that your significant other will hug your neck. So we're going to take just another short break while we let this thing simmer a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, everybody. Now we've let this simmer for about 10 or 12 minutes, and I couldn't wait. I had to try some of it. So I've got a bowl of it out, and as you can see, it's nice. It's got a really nice consistency, and these things are just bright and just beautiful. There's a beautiful color here, and the aroma is magnificent, let me tell you something. So, pardon me while I take a little taste. Let me tell you something. You cook this up and you serve it up to the family or your favorite, your best girl or your best guy, and pour up a mason jar of your favorite beverage. And let me tell you, son of a gun, you'll have big fun on the bayou. So that's my version of jambalaya as taught to me by some Cajuns down in Gulfport, Mississippi. I hope you try it. I know you'll love it. That's all for today. We'll be back with you again soon. Thanks for coming. Bye.